and welcome. The book I chose to report on is The Abolition of Man, written by C.S. Lewis in 1943. The book originated during World War II when Lewis was asked by the University of Durham to present the Riddell Memorial Lectures in February of that year. Later that year, the book was published as The Abolition of Man, consisting of Lewis's 3 lectures, Men Without Chests, The Way, and The Abolition of Man. The theme of The Abolition of Man is the defense of the natural law tradition in the 20th century. Natural law is the concept that there is an innate understanding of right and wrong that resides within every human being. It was the viewpoint of Lewis that the world was in the process of rejecting this natural law tradition of an objective right and wrong. Lewis saw this rejection being taught in the school system of the day, and because he believed that any society that accepted such a system of education was doomed to destruction, he penned this defense of the natural law tradition as an attempt to save Western civilization. Lewis was a theist, but didn't attempt to prove the existence of God. In fact, any atheist could agree with the content of the book. Lewis compares the world of the Green Book statement that personal feelings are worthless and flawed with the Tao, a combination of Eastern and Western moralities. The Tao is something we cannot change, or it would cease to be the Tao. The Tao is introduced as the sum of all truths in the world, proving the Green Book false. The Green Book removes sentiments, and removing sentiments of the mind produces men without chests. Lecture 1, Men Without Chests, introduced the idea that there is an objective good. Without the aid of trained emotions, the intellect is powerless against the animal organism. Even supposing that the harder virtues could really be theoretically justified with no appeal to objective value, it still remains true that no justification of virtue will enable a man to be virtuous. The big deal is that the textbook authors, along with the educators, are teaching children that there is no such thing as an objective value, a value known by everyone, and that all judgments about value are subjective, a value based on individual preference. Lewis explains that man is a 3-part being. Our intellect, head, should rule our appetites, desires, urges, the belly, through our soul and passion for truth, the chest. If we are without this foundation, we will become men without chests. Lecture 2, The Way, focused on debunking debunkers, stating that any attempts to prove the Tao ended up proving themselves wrong, because without the Tao there can be no real truth and no overall elementary truth from which to base the argument against the Tao. What would the individual and society be like if it was on the way without the Tao? Lewis says, each instinct, if you listen to it, will claim to be gratified at the expense of all the rest. By the very act of listening to one rather than to the others, we have already prejudged the case. Lewis concludes that without the Tao, there is no morality. No one can order others to do anything. If everything is relative, if subjective morality carries the day, there is no foundation for anyone but yourself, and a person is driven by the loudest voice among his instincts, appetites, thoughts, or impulses. According to Van Til, all normal humans are moral agents. Morality is about what we should do because of who we are. If we listen to our instincts, we are merely animals. Lecture 3, The Abolition of Man, looks at the idea of man versus nature using 3 examples: airplanes, wireless service, and contraceptive, to demonstrate the fact that men only have power over that which others give them. People do not have the power to fly or transmit information, but are given the privilege by other men. Lewis says, we may have put powerful machines in their hands, but we will have preordained how we are to use them. As Lewis states, what we call man's power over nature turns out to be a power exercised by some men over other men with nature as its instrument. Lewis talks about eugenics and scientific education, the power to make its descendants what it pleases. The point is that all men who come after are the patients of that power. People of the present generation have power over people of future generations. Lewis outlines the example of contraceptives as the means of one generation to simply prevent the existence of the next. As Lewis states, every past generation has rebelled against its predecessors, and eventually there will be a kind of master generation which will have power over all previous and future generations. Due to the resilience of man, the last thing to be conquered by man is likely to be human nature itself. Despite the fact that men give their power over to other men to exercise over them, the innate strength within human nature is much greater than any other part of nature. Each advance will not strengthen man, but weaken man. He offers the point to consider whether man will lose control over himself or be moving farther away from what could allow him to gain control over himself, the Tao, the natural law, written within us as individuals. Romans 2:14-16 point out that morals and values are written in even the unbelieving man. They show that the work of the law is written on their hearts, while their conscience also bears witness, and their conflicting thoughts accuse or even excuse them. This is our innate connection to morals and conscience. Lewis might put it this way: the battle will indeed be won, but who precisely will have won it? We essentially refer to what we have conquered as nature as the reduction of things to mere nature, and allows them to be conquered with much more ease. Unfortunately, man himself may become mere nature over time, but not nature to be controlled by himself. Rather, natural man is to be under control of mere appetite, that is mere nature, in the person of the dehumanized conditioners. Some may say that it's difficult to imagine a society as painted by Lewis. Lewis said, if man exists for long enough, it is inevitable. And I say that it may just be that we have arrived in that dehumanized society. In our current society, we are trading virtue for integration. They're calling abortion pro-choice. Babies in the womb are just a fetus. Our virtues are now just personal values. Sin is called indiscretion, and sexual immorality is just known as hooking up. Lewis didn't argue that the progressive society was wrong, but that it was inhuman. The society couldn't be wrong because it had abolished the concepts of right and wrong, therefore abolishing humanity. Lewis says that the world of the Green Book, ruled by the conditioners, wouldn't speak of wrongs because there could be no knowledge of wrong. The conditioners aren't bad people, they are not men at all. Man's idea is rooted in the idea of value. Without an inherent value system, there can be no man. In conclusion, without a belief in and the teaching of universal moral laws, we fail to educate the heart and are left with intelligent men who behave like animals, relying on instinct rather than morals, or as Lewis puts it, men without chest. The book is about the education system as it is evolving in Great Britain, and here's the thing, he was right. Men without chest dominate the world scene today. He was so on target. Thank you.